are going live on YouTube. Once it shows that we are live, we will get started. We're going live, so that you can get, thank you. Okay, it's done. We're directing to YouTube. Fantastic. So let's get started this evening. Okay, I'd like to welcome you to the second Bible study on L.E.A.D Bible study. My name is Dr. Maxwell Oba. I'll be your pilot, your host this evening, and we're going on an amazing journey. So like I said, I need to disable my video because the last week's own affected the YouTube recording. So let me disable my video at this point. Okay, thank you. So we'll just start the Bible study. And today, so those of you joining me for the very first time, L.E.A.D is actually to help Christian professionals apply conceptually sound and practical biblical principles to everyday life issues in 4 areas: leadership, entrepreneurship, attitude, and decision making. There are other things about the Bible that we will not touch on, but these are the 4 areas that we'll focus on: leadership, entrepreneurship. That's why it's L.E.A.D, and it's a vision that's been in my heart for many years. So today we'll be looking at the leadership lessons from Jacob's journey, part 2, but specifically the 3 requirements for leading effectively. Our text is Genesis and the 33rd chapter from the 12th verse. This was the journey between Esau and Jacob. We talked about it last week. They've made peace, and Esau offered Jacob like an assistance. Let me go with you on a journey, and I would go before you. Then Jacob said to Esau, "My Lord knows that the children are weak, and the flocks and herds which are nursing are with me. And if the men should drive them hard one day, all the flock will die. Please let my Lord go on ahead before his servant." He said, "I will lead on slowly at a pace which the livestock that go before me and the children are able to endure until I come to my Lord in Seir." And last week, we looked at 5 general life lessons. This is a summary for those of us that missed it last week, that not every opportunity is a blessing. Not every opportunity is a blessing. That was what we considered last week. And we said that you need to think about the possible consequences before you jump at an offer. We looked at that last week. We also said that peace doesn't equate friendship or fellowship. The fact that you make peace with somebody doesn't mean you should be best friends with that person. Jacob had made peace with Esau, but he said, "Esau, you can go on your journey and I will come along on my own." Number 3 says that shared history is not the same as shared destiny. That they shared a lot in common, twin brothers under the same father and mother till they were 40. But right now, Jacob had a destiny to pursue different from that of Esau. And I said here last week, don't let your history destroy your destiny. We looked at the case of Jonathan. Number 4, we talked about shared values and greater than shared history, that a friend can stick closer to you than a brother. I have somebody here who is a friend, and for me, he's like a big brother. And that is number 4, that shared values is better than shared history. And number 5, which is what I said, one of the most important lessons, is the concept of limping. And if your values do not align with some other people, then it's time to kiss them goodbye. Why am I'm doing this as a summary. For those of us who missed last week, you can actually watch the full episode on YouTube. It's there on YouTube, and I want to encourage you, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, because this is already on YouTube. And as soon as it finishes, you can actually watch it again and take some notes, because it's 30 minutes that I have and I need to keep to time. Today, I want to focus on the 3 requirements for leading effectively. And it's from Jacob's these 3 verses. Verse 13 says, Jacob said, "My Lord knows." And sometimes, so some of us as leaders, we don't know this. And Jacob was trying to tell Esau, "Thank you for your offer, but please, I need to remind you that the children that I have with me are weak, and the flocks and the herds are nursing are with me. The ones that are nursing are with me." And in verse 14, it says, "I will lead on slowly at a pace which the livestock that go before me and the children are able to endure. From this, we started talking about it last week, that to lead effectively, there are only three things that you need to know or that you need to do to lead effectively. The first point is to be accurately aware of the state of your people. The children are weak, and the flocks and the herds which are nursing are with me. That's the first point, to be acutely aware of the state of your people. Number two is to recognize their needs. So what do they need? And number three is to lead at the pace of your people. Everything about leadership is encapsulated and embedded on these 3 points: understanding people's states, recognizing their needs, and leading at the pace of the people. And this evening, I'm going to prove to you that these 3 points, have been validated and proven by scholars in the leadership and the business world. So two professors wrote an article on the psychological perspective of leadership. Their names are Jennifer Chapman and Jessica Kennedy. And this was in a book in Harvard. And they talked about the 3 imperatives of developing as a leader. I want you to pay attention to these 3 imperatives, and we'll compare it with the 3 that I listed in the previous slide. The first imperative is what they call diagnostic capability. That is the leader's ability to understand the challenges facing the team, the organization, or the nation. That's diagnostic capability. The second is behavioral flexibility. That's the leader's ability, having diagnosed the situation, to be flexible, choose different behaviors in order to deal with the situation. And number 3 is they called it understanding the leadership paradox, which is understanding that although you are the leader, but leadership is not everything about you. So 3 things that they said as the imperatives of developing as a leader: diagnostic capabilities, behavioral flexibility, and understanding the leadership paradox. Now we want to compare these 3 with the model I gave you: being acutely aware of the state of your people, understanding their needs, and leading at the pace of your people. The first here is being acutely aware of the state of your people. And that's the same as diagnostic capability, understanding their state, the ability to diagnose, to know what state your people are in. Number 2 is also recognizing their needs. And recognizing their needs is still part of the diagnostic capability. And the third point is leading at their pace. Now, leading at their pace is a combination of behavioral flexibility and also the leadership paradox, and I will explain it as we go. But you will agree with me and that there are similarities between both models. Being acutely aware of the state of your people, the professors from Harvard calls it diagnostic capability. Recognizing their needs is part of that. Leading at their pace is behavioral flexibility. It's the leader's ability to adjust his or her leadership style to adapt to the people that you are leading. I need to ask at this point, can you people still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're hearing you. Please go on.
Okay, thank you. So why did I bring this here? So that you know that whatever we're teaching in this place is conceptually sound. It's one of the core values of this program, that it must be conceptually sound. We must be able to validate it, prove it from other authors, writers out there, even though we use the foundation from God's word. Now, so let's go back to the model that we want to use. Be acutely aware of the state of your people, recognizing their needs, and leading at the pace of your people. And last week, we talked about the president that we need going into 2023. Irrespective of your religious, okay, we are all okay, irrespective of your political inclination, you agree with me that the president that we need to pilot the affairs of Nigeria must be somebody that can understand the state of the Nigerian nation, recognize what Nigeria needs at this particular time: security, power, economy, and all that, and be able to lead at the pace of this nation, adjust his or her leadership style to take us to the destiny that God has in store for us as a nation. So come back to this. Let's break it down now and explain what each one represents. So when we talk about state, what exactly do we mean by state. Simple definition is the present condition of something, not the past, the present right now. It is that ability to see things as they are and not as you want them to be. A lot of leaders suffer from confirmation bias. They see the only things that they want to see, not as things are. So they are not very objective. If you provide them with all the evidence, even with the evidence, they will still deny the evidence. So in point number one, it means that the leader has to be very objective. The leader has to speak truth to himself and tell himself that there's something wrong with the Nigerian economy, for example. There's something wrong with the organization, for example, or there's something wrong with my health, or there's something wrong with my finances. That's that ability to see things as they are and not as you want them to be. That's the first point of state. As simple as this is, you find that a lot of leaders fail in this particular point. They play the ostrich, they bury their head, and things are going from bad to worse. Rather than admitting it and recognizing it, they still keep telling themselves that everything is fine. The same story of the emperor dancing naked is point number one, that inability to see things as they are. In the book by James McGregor Bonds. James McGregor Bonds is one of the leading authorities, writers on the concept of leadership, and the title of the book is Transforming Leadership. And he said in somewhere around page 31, 33, that the first question that is commonly asked in military operation is, what is the situation? That's the state, the present condition or situation of something. What is the situation happening in the battlefield? What is the situation happening? The same question that a doctor would ask is, what is this situation? Every time you go to the hospital, what the doctor is trying to find out is what exactly is happening to the human body. And if the doctor admits you and perhaps performs an operation, the first time when the doctor comes back to do what we call ward round, the first thing the doctor wants to find out is, what is the current situation of that patient? And he says in that book that battle planning can be defined as a constant groping for an understanding of the situation. Your strategy, your tactics, your plans are useless if you don't understand. The first point is the concept of the state. And this is the starting point. So what's the state? If you financial state, you can take this marital state. For if you want to apply this to your marriage, you can take this to your health. What's the state of your health? You can apply this to your business. What is the state of your business? And if you're in the political terrain, what is the state of your constituency? Is point and number one. And you need to be brutally honest with yourself in doing point and number one, because sometimes the information you might not like, but leaders who succeed, leaders who transform their organization start by understanding what is the state. That's point and number one. Second point we said is the ability, now in the second point, is the ability to recognize needs. So state is the first point. What is the current situation? From state, we identify needs. And I define needs here as the requirements of the situation, or the gap between what is and what should be. So let's take a patient, for example. You come to that situation, you see the patient, and you know that, oh, this is the state of health. This is what it should be. But this is where the patient is. There's a gap. And that gap is where your intervention plays. That gap is where you prescribe drug. Whether it's an operation or the prescription that you give is to bridge the gap or to close the gap. So when we understand state, it also means that we should know the basis for measurement. When you talk about state, it means that the leader must also have a performance management system in place to say, okay, this is where my organization should be, and this is where we are right now. There is a gap. Based on that gap, so what do we need to do? So a leader that doesn't have a filter to judge state will believe that everything is fine. There will be bomb blasts, is fine. There will be insecurity. He doesn't, he feels that everything is fine simply because there is no filter to judge performance. So in the concept of state, we also know that there should be a standard that we'll use to judge performance. So point number two now says, based on that gap, what should we do? What's the gap between where we should be as a ministry, as an organization, as a nation, compared to where we are right now? Peter Drucker they call him the father of modern management, wrote an article, What Makes an Effective Executive? And in that article, the first thing he said, so the first thing he said in that article that makes an effective executive is that they ask the question, what needs to be done? That's the same thing. What needs to be done? Not what do I want to do, what needs to be done. And it's from the understanding of the state that you can identify what needs to be done. So a doctor performs that, they do the test, and from that test, they know the state, they see the gap, and they know what needs to be done. The same practice that a leader does. He understands the state of his people, his team. He knows where his people are supposed to be at any given time. And based on that understanding, the doctor or the leader, sorry, I use doctor because I'm a medical doctor. The leader knows what needs to be done in his team. And in this article, it says the second question they ask is what is good for the enterprise. And that what is good for the enterprise leads us to point and number 3. Remember I said there are just 3 things: state, needs, and leading at the pace of your people. So this is the third point, leading at the pace of your people. Point and number 3 is leading at your people's pace. And that pace simply means the speed at which the leader is going. That's what pace is at this point. In this case, Jacob said to Esau, I can't go at your pace because the people I have with me are young. And the flocks I have are still nursing. So he said, I can't go at your pace. He said, please go, my Lord. On ahead before your servant. He said, I will lead on slowly at the pace which the livestock that go before me and the children are able to endure. This is somebody that knows the people that he's leading and knows the pace that is required to lead the people to get to that particular destination of his people. And I want you to, let's pause a minute. I need to slow down because I think I might be going a bit fast. I want you to see what Jacob said. He said, I will lead on slowly at a pace which they. So I highlighted 2 words, I and they. I and they. And this is a battle that every leader would face. The first battle every leader will face is a battle that happens internally. It happens in the leader's attitude. It happens in the leader's mindset. It happens in the leader's orientation, understanding of what leadership is all about. Now, Jacob said, look at this here. I will lead on slowly at a pace that they, and that's the battle. We need to get to that point where we ask ourselves, why are we leading? Are we leading for ourselves or are we leading for people? That's the question every leader must come to answer. Why do you want to become the president of Nigeria? Is it for yourself, or is it for they? What is driving you? What is your motivation, the aspiration for that office, that position? What exactly is driving it? And in this battle, we see there are certain people that never in their life overcome that I syndrome. The day doesn't exist for in their leadership language, in their leadership parlance. It's I that has been exalted. It's I is what I want. Is what I want is how I want it. That's the thing that drives them in their leadership. And I say here, as from this concept of I and they, that leadership begins with you. That's what Jacob said. I will lead. It starts with me, but leadership is not all about you. It's not just about what you want. It's about what is best for the team. And I'm sure that Jacob would have said to Esau, I like your offer. Esau, there's a lot of catching up for us to do, but I have young people. So it's not just what I want, it's what is best for the team. That ability to subordinate your desires for the overall good of the team is what leadership is all about. And I can say this categorically, and you will agree with me, that the leaders that we've seen in Nigeria and Africa at large are leaders that do not even understand this concept. There's nothing like they in their language. It's about I, it's about what I want, it's about what I think is what is good for me at the expense of your people. How can a leader be that you stay in an economy, the leader is worthy, but the citizens of that nation are begging to eat? There's something that's fundamentally wrong. It's I overday that has happened in Nigeria and Africa, and that is why we are where we are today. Where until a man can transcend I and put they at the forefront of his leadership, that man cannot become a great leader. And Jacob says, it's not about me, it's not about I, it's about them. And thanks for the offer, but no thanks, because your offer would not favor them. I could spend so much time on that, but because of my time, and the one way to test again a leader is, would you sacrifice your people for your personal pleasures? Would you sacrifice your people? What would you be willing to give up for the people that you are willing to lead? That's one way to test. And Jesus said, I gave my life for you. That's a true test of leadership. I gave my life in exchange for yours. That's what leadership is. Now, a leader is called a hireling who cannot give his life for his people. Is not actually meant to lead those people. Well, because of my time, I need to summarize this. So I say here that immature leaders focus on I. Everything about their leadership is I call them immature because they are children. And you know, a child only thinks about himself or herself. A child doesn't think about the father or the mother. For in the child's world, the world revolves around him. So if the child wants something now, mommy, I want it now, daddy, I want it now, and they can trouble you to get what they want. They don't really understand the stress they're going through, the difficulties of your day. They are not interested. It's just that I want it now. The child feels that he or she is the son of the family need system, and everything revolves around them. But guess what? As a child begins to grow, the child begins to consider, oh, mommy is tired, daddy is tired. Let's not disturb mommy. Let's not disturb daddy. Notice here, two things happens when a child begins to grow. So many things happens, but in terms of leadership, two things happen. One is called consideration. The second is called inclusion. As a child begins to grow, a child begins to consider the other members of the family. A child comes to that realization that I am not the only person in this family. That's the same thing with leadership. When you have a leader who thinks that everything revolves around him or her, that doesn't consider people, doesn't include people, that person is a child. And can I say this? I wrote it in my book, Alphabet of Leadership, that when you think that the world revolves around you, it shows that your leadership world is so small. Next thing I say here, and this is from a quote by an amazing guy, wrote two amazing books, Extreme Ownership and Extreme Leadership. And he says an important part of being a leader is to be humble enough to see beyond his or her own needs. This is just validating the things I've been trying to say, I and they. I would lead on slowly at a pace. It's the same thing in the family system. If the man begins to think it's all about me and doesn't consider the wife, it means that that man is immature. The same principle you can apply. So let me bring this to a close, because this is supposed to be 30 minutes. I will lead, next week we'll continue this because there's so much to teach on this. I will lead on slowly at a pace. What does it mean? How do we lead? How do we apply this in an everyday situation? We'll look at it next week. But let me end with this particular quote. And I wrote this here, that great leaders are concerned about the effect or impact of their leadership on their followers. Wow. That great leaders are concerned. Great leaders are concerned about the effect or impact. So I can't be moving without thinking about how is my leadership affecting the people that are following me. So look at it, put it in another way. The true test of leadership is seen in the impact you make on your followers and not how long you've been in the office or in position. So if I want to tell if you're a great president, I should ask your constituent, the citizens. If I want to tell if you're a great boss, I should ask your followers. If I want to tell if you're a great pastor, I should ask your members. If I want to tell if you're a great husband, I should ask your wife and your kids. Great leaders are concerned about the effect or impact. So you can't get to that point in leadership where you start thinking, I care less how they feel. No, that's not leadership. You need to care for your people. I will continue from this next week because it's 27 minutes. Oh, the time is so short. Tony Donkey in the book, The Mentor Leader, wrote, and I quote, if we lose sight of people, we lose sight of the very purpose of leadership. If we lose sight of people, if you lose sight of the day, if you lose sight of the people that you are meant to lead, then you've lost sight of the very purpose of leadership. It's on this note, I think this should be my last slide. Okay, the last slide now says Proverbs 27:23. Solomon, we emphasize this again. It says, be diligent to know the state of your flock. With acute awareness of the state. And that says attend. That attend is from knowing the state and their needs. Then attend is, okay, meet their needs. Help your people grow. Make them better. Attend to your heads. Be diligent to know the state of your flock. So this evening, we covered just 3 things today. We said that the 3 requirements for leading effectively is an acute awareness of the state of your people. Number 2 is recognizing their needs. And number 3 is leading at the pace. And we spent time talking about what it means, each one: state, current condition, needs, the gap between what is and what should be, and leading at their pace. Is not about you, it's I versus they. You need to include and consider your day. You need to think about the effect of your people, the effect of your leadership on your people. I will take questions at this point, but I want to say that you can please follow me on the YouTube. Is actually Lead with Dr. Maxwell Uba. So this video will be on the YouTube page just immediately, so you can download it. Please comment on it. Please share it with your friends and family. These are my handles. So it's on this note I will need to pause and stop and say thank you for everybody who came. This is exactly 2029. So we said it's 30 minutes. I keep to time. I will want to take questions. So at this point, I think